Hello everyone, welcome back to another English online session. I hope you all fine. The previous class I have just told you the introduction and some part of the lesson Mother's Day. Two important characters like Mrs. Fitzgerald and Mrs. Pearson, and about Mrs. Pearson's family, the problems she was facing, everything explained there, what kind of family it was, and how Mrs. Fitzgerald was treated in her family by the other members, like her son, her daughter, and her husband. So she was a homemaker, and all the time, like 24 into 7, she has to work for the other people, and they are not considering her well-being. And Mrs. Fitzgerald is suggesting a way to solve or fix this problem. Mrs. Pearson is a little bit hesitant about this initially, but she was kind of convinced because she is fed up with the situation, the things going on now. So she was a little bit convinced, but still she has a doubt whether it will work out or not. For that, Mrs. Fitzgerald was asking that whether she has tried this or not. Okay, to say that it won't work out like. So the story continues like that. It's like they have decided to switch their soul or the body and change their soul to each other's body, and Mrs. Fitzgerald decided to fix the problem of Mrs. Pearson's family. Now let me narrate you the balance part of the story. In a very relaxed tone, Mrs. Fitzgerald told her that she has tried it before, and even though it's been long, the trick should work. Its effect will remain for a short period, but enough for them fulfill their aim. She further added, while holding Mrs. Pearson's hands, that she had acquired the trick from the East. Well, Mrs. Fitzgerald makes her aware that she has no other option while holding her hands. She gives Mrs. Pearson a few simple instructions in the process of transmission and says a few words in her mouth. Once she has whispered that spell, both of their bodies become lifeless for a moment while they are still holding each other's hands. As they both come back to life, they try to imitate each other. Mrs. Fitzgerald is now a bit shy, and Mrs. Pearson has become unafraid. So here we understood that initially Mrs. Pearson is a little bit hesitant because she is not sure about whether it work out or not, but Mrs. Fitzgerald giving assurance that it will work out, and she has practiced it before, but yeah, it's been a little bit long, or long years back she has tried, but she is assuring that the effect will continue for some time, by the time they can solve the problem. And they have tried their this spell, and they have exchanged their body. Now there is a change of behavior in both of them. Mrs. Fitzgerald is actually a bold lady, now behaving shy and innocent behavior, and Mrs. Pearson on the opposite, showing some unafraid or very bold behavior because they have exchanged their soul. The personalities have now been switched, and with this, the transmission process is complete. While snatching away the cigarette from Mrs. Fitzgerald's hand, who is now Mrs. Pearson, she is confident about the success of her trick. Mrs. Fitzgerald, who is now Mrs. Pearson, looks at herself, and she is shocked to see herself in the body of Mrs. Fitzgerald. Thus, she screams with fright, Mrs. Fitzgerald, still in shock, now believes that it is possible and their bodies have actually changed. Very proudly, Mrs. Pearson affirms that thinks to herself that she was unsure if she still had the ability to do the magic. Still unclear about her idea, Mrs. Pearson, now in the body of Mrs. Fitzgerald, is worried that her family can't see her in the body of Mrs. Fitzgerald. So now Mrs. Fitzgerald is uncertain about the tricks. Now she became very proud of that because she has done it. She has completed the task. And both of them initially trying to understand the body because their behavior is different. Now it's changed, trying to adapt themselves with the new body. This Mrs. Pearson in the body of Mrs. Fitzgerald is a little bit worried about her family and how their family is going to understand her. She very harshly tells or read Mrs. Pearson that her family will face Mrs. Fitzgerald, who is now in her body. The secret is only theirs, and the family will not know anything about it. She is still frightened about the consequences and is worried about not being able to reverse the magic. In an attempt to comfort her, she tells the real Mrs. Pearson that she would anyway have more privilege and fun being Mrs. Fitzgerald while living her life. Still worried, she tells her that she wants to live as herself only and not like somebody else. She comforts her by telling her that there is nothing to worry about and she will reverse it whenever Mrs. Pearson wants. So the doubts and worries continuing. Mrs. Fitzgerald is saying that Mrs. Pearson can live for some time with the privilege because she was in Mrs. Fitzgerald's body now. So all the people treat her with respect, and she was always a bold lady. But Mrs. Pearson was not satisfied with that. She was just saying that she wanted to live in her body with all limitations and struggles she has. She is satisfied with her life, but somewhat fed up with the behavior of the children. That's why she partially agreed and convinced with the idea of Mrs. Fitzgerald, but she is not completely satisfied till now. But on the other side, Mrs. Fitzgerald is going to enjoy the time correcting the children of Mrs. Pearson, and she is already excited about it. Mrs. Pearson wants to get back in her body, while Mrs. Fitzgerald is strongly of the opinion that she should deal with the family first. Mrs. Pearson didn't know where to begin from, so Mrs. Fitzgerald would do it for her. She instructs her to go to Mrs. Fitzgerald's house, which is vacant for now. She could visit in a while to see the progress, but still then she is supposed to take pleasure in the process. She then tells her to go before someone sees her, realizing that this is happening. Then now Mrs. Fitzgerald gets up to leave and confirms once again if all is going to work. So Mrs. Fitzgerald again giving assurance. So she just play the role for some time to begin to start because Mrs. Pearson is struggling to start how to just correct them. So that will be done by Mrs. Fitzgerald, and they just switch the body again, switch the soul again. And Mrs. Fitzgerald is asking, Mrs. Fitzgerald in the body of Mrs. Pearson is asking to Mrs. Pearson to leave the house, and Mrs. Fitzgerald's house is now vacant now. She can spend time there and enjoy the time, and she after some time she can visit and analyze the progress Mrs. Fitzgerald made in this family. Mrs. Pearson reassures her and tells her to leave. While Mrs. Fitzgerald leaves, Mrs. Pearson attempts to make herself comfortable by lighting another cigarette and sorting her cards. After a while, Doris Pearson, a girl of about 20 or so, enters. She is the daughter of Mrs. Pearson and had the potential of turning out well hadn't she been over pampered. Without noticing, Doris instructs her mom to iron her yellow silk dress as she is supposed to go out that night. As soon as she notices her mom, she is left startled and goes towards her. As she is about to speak, she uses her normal calm voice instead of the usual regretful and shaky voice. She looks at her and sarcastically asks her what, according to her, was she doing. Does it look like she is painting the ceiling? So now the daughter of Mrs. Pearson entered there. Mrs. Pearson's body has Mrs. Fitzgerald's soul, but Mrs. Doris doesn't know that. Doris Pearson, daughter of Mrs. Pearson, she just came there as usual and like giving instructions to her mother. She asked her to just iron the yellow silk dress for her. She is not clearly noticing that Mrs. Pearson was just smoking a cigarette. Doris Pearson just got shocked and asked what she was doing. Very sarcastically, Mrs. Pearson answered that can't Doris Pearson see that Mrs. Pearson was smoking? And she sarcastically said, am I just painting the ceiling? Just look at me, I am smoking. That's the attitude. This wasn't her actual attitude. Doris Pearson is shell-shocked, startled, confused what was going on in her house, because she is not at all get used with this kind of situation. She was over pampered by her mother, so she couldn't understand that what was going on there. She points out that her mother is smoking. The fact that she is so shocked highlights that Mrs. Pearson isn't usually seen smoking. Again, in a very calm manner, Mrs. Pearson replies that she saw it right and tells her that apparently there is no law against smoking. She is shocked because she thought Mrs. Pearson doesn't smoke. She bluntly replies to Doris that she was wrong. Doris asks Mrs. Pearson if the tea is ready for her in the kitchen. She tells her that she can have it whatever she wants. Annoyed, Doris got annoyed. She asked if Mrs. Pearson is indicating that the tea is not ready. Mrs. Pearson replies that she has had all the tea she wanted and there is none ready for Doris. She then shares that she might go out for a meal at the Clarendon. So here we can understand a change of behavior in Mrs. Pearson, because Mrs. Pearson's body has the soul of Mrs. Fitzgerald. So after that, she just understand that Mrs. Pearson was smoking. She just asked her whether her tea is ready or not. For that, Mrs. Pearson replied that the tea is ready and she had it. If Doris need tea, she can go and prepare tea and she can have the tea. This reply also shocked Doris, because never her mother told her like that. A bit more shocked, she asked Mrs. Pearson who would go out for a meal. Mrs. Pearson again tells her that she might go out for a meal. She is talking about herself only. Doris senses that there is something wrong and asks Mrs. Pearson what's gotten into her. Thinking that it's unfair to her, she exclaims that she is not being foolish. She thinks that it is hard to take that she has been working hard, and when she comes home tired, she cannot even expect a cup of tea. She then asks Mrs. Pearson if she heard the instructions about her yellow silk. Mrs. Pearson refuses to have heard anything about her dress. She asks Doris if she now likes being treated like how they have been treating Mrs. Pearson. So here, this Doris is a bit confused, and she was just asking that who is going to take a meal out, who is going out for take a meal, and again very coolly, Mrs. Pearson saying she is going to take the meal from outside. And what's wrong in it? Mrs. Pearson is very calm and quietly giving answers. Usually, she just be tensed and just read about these children, but now she is giving befitting replies to her daughter. Rudely, she tells Mrs. Pearson that she has no problem with it and that she was allowed dress and so that she can wear it. Doris tells her that she wants Mrs. Pearson to do it like she always does. Mrs. Pearson refused to iron her dress this time and tells her not to brag about the long hours she works for because Mrs. Pearson herself works twice the hours as Doris and has never once complained in her life, nor has been thanked for it. She doesn't even get paid. She then asks Doris where she is supposed to go that night. She replies that she is supposed to go out for dinner with Charlie Spencer. She asks Doris on what occasion is she is going out with Charlie Spencer. So here there is furthermore conversations about ironing the dress because always Mrs. Pearson does that. So Mrs. Doris is expecting it from Mrs. Pearson again, but Mrs. Pearson was saying that she was not going to do it for this time. If she liked to take that dress, just iron herself. Okay, Mrs. Pearson asking Mrs. Doris to iron your dress and you just wear it and you just go. And also telling her don't brag about or praise about herself working somewhere because Mrs. Pearson also working in her home tirelessly for the family and she never expect getting paid or even these people wouldn't say a thanks to her. And every day she was working like anything. She was struggling actually there, but she never complained about it. Doris, on the other hand, was saying she was working, and when she comes back, she is expecting a tea from her mother, and again she wanted to go out. For a date with Charlie Spencer, so her mother should iron the dress for her. Everything, these kind of things, very, very quietly, calmly, sarcastically, replying to Doris' questions and her queries. Doris was shell shocked because she has never seen her mother behaving like that. And so completely Fitzgerald is trying to teach Doris a lesson that her behavior is not the right way and she is being very rude to her mother. And she was just mentioning that this is the way these children and her husband treating her. So she is now giving back what or making them understand this is the way they were treating her. So I am stopping the explanation here. Now read the text, all of you. Read it thoroughly. As I always instruct you, don't forget to have a dictionary. That will help you a lot to understand the points. See you in the next class. Bye. Take care.